This is Dan Fagelli here with CLV Boost. In this CLV Boost tutorial, we're going to be talking about an email optimization audit. Essentially, we're going to look at how to determine the highest ROI improvements to your email marketing strategy, and we're going to focus on 4 core areas that we focus on here at CLV Boost. This is your site, your software, your autoresponders, and your broadcast messaging. Now there is a little bit more to it, but these are nice dimensions to look at immediately and be able to make some kind of yes or no decisions about where there's significant area for improvement. And this is the way that we go through it, and this is the way that we look at it in terms of being able to optimize somebody's email marketing strategy to deliver higher ROI. A lot of the instances that we'll be covering in this particular presentation present an almost unquestioned opportunity to be able to increase the customer lifetime value of the average lead or the conversion rate of the average lead, and those are often going to be the opportunities that we hop on first. And the first thing that we talk about is just the site in and of itself. So on the site, we like to look explicitly for opportunities to convert more visitors to subscribers, buyers, appointments, or users, whatever a conversion is in your business. So common conversion levers are, in our case here, opt-ins, newsletters, white papers. This is essentially anywhere where somebody could enter their information to get something free or to receive something from you in the future. Some kind of an opt-in opportunity. If you go to HubSpot.com, they sell a lot of fancy-dancy software, costs a whole bunch of money. But in addition to that, they'll offer you white papers, they'll offer you webinars, all sorts of other reasons to get your email address, because by golly, once they have that, there's a good chance they might be able to sell you some software. Next up, sales pages, order pages, or a store, anywhere where people can pay online in some kind of an e-commerce capacity. That's another opportunity for us to be able to optimize in terms of good copywriting. And then there's appointment forms and contact forms. This might be somewhere on your website where you allow people to sign up for a time to have an appointment with one of your sales staff or to be able to talk to you personally or whatever the case may be. This is more for folks who do their selling via the telephone. So generally speaking, we'll look at somebody's site and we'll ask, do opt-in forms, sales pages, and or appointment forms exist? If the answer is positively absolutely no, then by golly, we'll be focusing on creating those things. We'll be looking at spaces on the main homepage. We'll be looking at spaces on the blog site. We'll be looking at other high traffic web properties, and we'll ask ourselves, how can we create an opt-in here? How can we create either a newsletter that's sufficient enough to generate some opt-ins? How can we entice some folks with a white paper? How can we bring people into our world in a formal subscriber sense on the websites where the traffic is actually hitting? So that's one thing that we'll do if there's absolutely none of what you see above, opt-in pages, sales pages, or appointment forms. If there are opt-in pages, sales pages, or appointment forms, we'll aim to improve the copy or split test these pages. So a lot of the time there will be an opt-in form, but it'll say something like, enter for information, or here's our newsletter, or some similar quote that isn't exactly fantastic copywriting, and that we can usually beat very significantly via copywriting that's a little bit more enticing, potentially including a white paper, potentially changing the button text or the button color, or making relatively small changes around the placement or the copy on that opt-in to make it so that we can get a significantly higher percentage of our web visitors to then become subscribers, which of course over the course of a month, depending on our traffic, can end up being a lot of money. In addition to that, we can again split test these changes. So we can change the position of the opt-in form, we can change the text or the buttons on the opt-in form. We can also split test those changes, and we can make sure that your old style versus our new style, that we're getting significantly higher percentage of opt-ins than we were before. And we can do the same kind of split testing with a sales page. We have a sales page, we can change the headline, we can change the buttons, we can change the layout of that page, and we can make sure we get more buyers. And then with an appointment form, it would be the same thing. We'd be able to figure out, Can we generate more appointments if we lay out the form this way or that way? Can we split test this appointment form to test our button text, to test the layout of the appointment form, or where the appointment form is on the page, so that a significantly higher percentage of people sign up on the phone so they can be, or sign up on the computer so they can be sold on the phone? So in terms of a website and determining where our email marketing optimization priorities are, or copywriting, in this case, priorities really lie, I ask these questions. I say, do these things exist? If yes, here's how we can improve them. If no, well then, shucks, we might really want to make them, especially in opt-in. If you have all your web presences and absolutely no opt-ins, there's a borderline horrible opportunity to really hop in there and make some money with the website, especially if you're getting higher traffic. As you'll notice in the top right of this little box here that I have site written in, I've written efforts pay off more with higher traffic to the sites themselves. So in this case, our ROI is higher when there's lots of traffic. I was recently talking with a fella on the phone. I'd like to give examples here so you guys can understand sort of how this pans out in real time. I was talking to a fella on the phone who runs a company that makes a natural beard oil product. Couldn't tell you, right? The last time I've oiled my beard was basically never, but they sell a bunch of this stuff on the web. And the unfortunate fact is that he really doesn't have any traffic to his website. He puts all of his product in other people's websites, or other people's websites and physical presences, like a CVS or different kind of body care type e-commerce sites, and really doesn't get anything back to his main site. So the email marketing we're focusing more on for him isn't really going to be revamping his site quite as much, because it doesn't look like there's going to be that much traffic going to it in the near future. It's more about database marketing, some other things that we'll talk about in a second. But that's just one random example. People who get a lot of traffic, we work with somebody who's in the software business. They do financial trading software, actually get a good amount of traffic for just those terms. Especially on weekdays, they'll get an awful lot of traffic, and the goal for them is to be able to collect more opt-ins, collect more, in their case, free trial subscribers, so that we can convert them to customers. So in this case with the website, higher traffic is generally is a higher lever for ROI, whether they have these three kinds of online assets: opt-in, sales page, order form, or appointment form, or whether they do have it or not. Higher traffic will give us more testing opportunity, will give us more return on investment after we make the changes. The questions I might ask somebody in order to determine what we're going to change on their site, or what kind of opportunities might be there, is number one, how much traffic hits your main website and web properties on a monthly basis. If they say, well, we probably have about 30 people see our main website, say, okay, well, let's talk about some other things. Or I might say, okay, are you planning on driving a ton of traffic? Because it sounds like you really need to do that. So that's a really nice first question to ask in terms of what our opportunities are on the website. The next one might be, how are you optimizing your website to generate subscribers, sales, or appointments? In other words, what strategies are you using? What have you figured out about your site that sort of helps you get more opt-in, sales, or appointments? A lot of the time, folks will say, well, by golly, I'm not doing any of that at all. And then I'll say, okay, great, well, we should talk. Other times they'll say, well, we're working on this with our sales page, this with our opt-in form, and that gives me a good opportunity of what kind of strategic and tactical thought has gone into their website already. If they say, optimizing what? Then I'll basically know nothing's been optimized, and probably nothing's been tested, and we have gargantuan, substantial opportunities on the site to be able to have it make more dollars. Next up, where are you split testing on your website right now? I always want to know this, because if they're already split testing in some important ways, such as with their main opt-in forms, maybe they're split testing a sales form, then they might be a little bit advanced. Doesn't mean we can't work together. In fact, I would argue that we have the copywriting chops and skills that might be able to beat out theirs, because it's what we do for a living all day. But it's good to know if they are split testing. And oftentimes, if they're split testing one thing, they might be neglecting another thing. So if they have a lot of opt-in traffic and they're split testing that, but they're not split testing, let's say, an order form for e-commerce, or let's say an appointment form where they actually make their money, which is on the telephone, then we can always start split testing those other properties. But I like to know, what are they split testing now? Often the answer is no. I'd say usually the answer is no. But it at least gives me an opportunity to know what they're doing thus far. All right, next up is software. So essentially, most of the folks that we work with will fall into one of two camps. And there is more detail here. We could go on for days here. Ultimately, in a slightly more complicated scenario, shucks, I'd be calling up different software companies and really figuring out the nitty-gritty of how they'll be able to customize themselves for my particular client. But in general, clients fall into one of two camps. We have people with lower price points and or lower budgets who sell products that are more generic. This might be, the guy with the, let's say, the beard oil. He doesn't customize the beard oil for every person. He sells beard oil. It's like he has two kinds of beard oil. That's it. It's pretty generic. I have other folks, that sell, I had mentioned the fella in the financial trading software. Yeah, they have a couple packages for the software, but shucks, I mean, they're not tweaking it per person. So folks who have either lower price points, lower budgets, or they sell more generic products, usually these people are recommended to use GetDrip software because it has very sharp reporting, it's very simple, and the split testing options are very easy to use. I also use this software a lot with people who I know are not going to master database and email marketing when I'm gone. Some people they're in the position where they're like, Dan, I need you to teach me to fish. I want to be a master email marketer. I want to be fantastic at writing, converting emails and marketing to my database and just being an excellent email marketer. Other people are like, man, I really don't want to think about that. And shucks, I don't want to do a damn thing that even smells like email marketing. I'd really like you to do all of it. In that case, too, GetDrip is usually what I'll recommend. So the qualities that will imply that I'll usually go with the simpler option, and when I say simpler option, I mean GetDrip. There are simpler emails such as MailChimp or Aweber, but those are in general just bad if you care about making money with email, so we don't use them. And if you're talking to somebody and they're using either Aweber or GetResponse is a little bit better, but Aweber or MailChimp or even Constant Contact, in general it means that they're unaware of how to make money with email. That doesn't mean they're a bad person. It just means that they're likely not split testing and not taking campaigns very seriously. And I'm sure there's some exceptions out there, but generally Constant Contact, MailChimp, or Aweber means that the email marketing is not a very high priority for this company. And that there's optimization to be done. So the qualities here are low price, low budget, low degree of customization, and low yearning to become a good email marketer. Those qualities will generally permit me to very swiftly recommend them to GetDrip software. There's more details to be gone into with that. You can always email me if you have additional questions. The second category of folks are people with either higher price points, higher budgets, or they sell more customized products or solutions, or they're people that really do want to master email marketing. They want to learn really significant skills here to continuously mine their database and build out really high converting campaigns to make a bunch of bucks, in addition to hiring us to do one-off projects. These people are often recommended either Infusionsoft, Ontraport, or HubSpot. Infusionsoft is really sort of the primero when it comes to segmentation and database marketing, as well as sort of very tailored if-then scenario type email marketing. In other words, if they click this link but they don't click this link, then we'll kick off this message automatically. A lot of very hyper-tailored action happening inside of Infusionsoft. HubSpot's really nice for some landing page type stuff. Ontraport generally I consider to be a watered-down version of Infusionsoft. Doesn't mean it's a bad version of Infusionsoft, it just means it's watered down. Doesn't cost quite as much, which often makes it easier for folks. If they can afford Infusion, generally have them do it. If they're a little bit less inclined to master email marketing and maybe their budgets are a little bit lower, we'll go with Ontraport. Normally Infusionsoft, based on our skills, especially with database marketing and really targeted campaigns, Infusions is often the way to go. So that's often with folks with slightly more customized solutions. And I'll talk about why in just a second. So if I ask myself, this is my kind of if-then scenario, my yes-no scenario, my flow chart here when it comes to software, is an email delivery software system being used? And if the answer is no, well, holy goodness, we got to select the proper email marketing software and we got to sign this person up for this stuff. Holy goodness. And they often won't know which one is best, and usually they'll go with MailChimp because it starts with a free trial, or some other software that doesn't really have the firepower to actually do anything related to making money with the email software, and so we'll want to sort of guide them in the right direction. I gave you the two directions that I'll generally go in. There's a lot more detail to go into there, and I'm happy to speak to that if you contact me. But in general, if there's no email marketing software, there's basically no excuse for that, and it's a great opportunity for return on investment. Next, we have if they do have a software, we have the opportunity to switch them to a software that's capable of their actual goals. If somebody has a very customized solution, let's say that I'm a PR firm and I do everything from video campaigns for the television to building you a new website to getting you into Wired magazine, and holy criminy, we're talking about a lot of different stuff. If that's the case, normally I'm going to have more opportunity to send you more tailored messaging. And so if I offer customized solutions, I'm going to want to have the ability to customize my emails per different segments on my list. I'm going to want to know, did you want email marketing? Are you in the electronics industry? Are you in the construction industry? Did you want press releases? I'm going to want to know all those little knick-knack details because I can offer more tailored knick-knack services. Also, if my price points are higher, it warrants greater segmentation. If you had a 1,000 person list and you sell beard softening oil, or a 2,000 person list or a 10,000 person list, and you were selling beard softening oil, is it possible to sell more oil based on different segmentation data? For example, I want beard softening oil because I want to look pretty for a wedding. Or I want beard softening oil because my wife complains that I scratch her and the things in the house with my big gnarly beard. Is it possible to tailor those emails based on that criterion? The answer is yes, I guess, but it's not the most gargantuan ROI of all time. If we offer a variety of services, and if we offer more tailored services, now I'm able to talk about the goals, really the relevant segmentation of my list at a much higher level. And normally, if I have that degree of segmentation and tailoredness available, for let's say a software like Infusionsoft would allow me to track what is someone's goal, what emails have they clicked on, what kinds of marketing campaigns are they interested in based on what they've clicked on, how many times have we been on the phone with this person in terms of their interest level on this kind of product. I can track all of that. And the more tailored my solutions are, and the higher my price points are, the more it warrants a more complex email marketing solution, generally speaking. So notice up here at the top right, I have written more expensive software used with companies with higher price points and more custom solutions, generally speaking. So that's important to bear in mind. If you're talking to somebody and they sell beard oil, it doesn't mean we can't work with them. In fact, I'm probably going to be doing work with a fellow who's doing beard oil in literally a week. But it will just mean that they might not need the complex software. Shucks, they might need the simple stuff. So that's important details to bear in mind. Up at the top right, again, the important nuances are I'm giving you sort of the levers to look at or the factors to look at to determine how much of a moneymaker could this be for me. If you sell beard oil, Get Drip is going to be just good enough for you. If you sell, $75,000 PR engagements to get people into the New York Times, then by golly, we're talking about something at a different level, and you're going to need software that actually costs, more than $100 a month. Don't be too surprised by that. Next up, questions to ask. What email marketing software are you using now, and why? If they have absolutely no why, then there probably wasn't much forethought done in terms of slapping down the credit card for that particular software. And that often will mean that we can select something a little bit better, a little bit more adequate for their goals. If they're using MailChimp, Aweber, or even Constant Contact, it's really a blatant sign that we have a lot of improvement to do in general. Now here's the thing, that's not across the board. There's some very smart folks out there using Constant Contact, and by golly, they might have been able to rig it in a really cool way to sort of make it work. But on the aggregate, Constant Contact is not it is a software used to send broadcast messages for companies that think it's important to send broadcasts. Generally, it's not a software used to really calibrate email campaigns to make money. So if they're using any of those three software, usually that's a red flag for me that there's opportunity to be had, especially if they have an existing list or a lot of traffic. Then I ask them, what are your price points? Then I'll ask them, are your solutions custom? In other words, are you tailoring your solutions prospect to prospect, customer to customer? If in fact if the bottom two, if the solutions are custom and if the price points are awful high, then we're usually looking at a slightly more complex marketing software, something a little bit more in-depth even than GetDrip, something more like Infusionsoft, HubSpot, or Entreport oftentimes. All right, so now we'll look at the portion of the audit where we talk about autoresponders. Autoresponders, or email campaigns, are useful for nearly all businesses. Let me give you a couple examples here. I made note to do that. In an e-commerce company, for example, if we're selling, even if it's software or if it's how to play piano online, or if it's, let's say, supplies for your new child, baby supplies, strollers and things like that, whatever the case may be. If you're an e-commerce oriented site with more of a store, now we have an opportunity not only to take our initial opt-ins and drive them to sale, but take our initial buyers and present them with other relevant offers that they could pay for. Or if you're a software company, we might not only have a free trial sequence that encourages you to stick around and then keep paying, but have a retention sequence where once you are paying, we educate you and make sure we keep you involved and engaged with the software so that we keep you around, paying every month. If you're a service-oriented business, like maybe you're a carpet cleaner or a plumber, even then, if you have an email list of customers or prospects, you can always run different seasonal specials in terms of the living room carpet cleaner spring special, something like that, just to get your foot in the door and get some dollars out from folks in your local area for those kind of services. If you run an agency or a consultancy, sort of like we do, then you can communicate with your list with all sorts of different information. When somebody initially opts in, generally you'll want to get them to the phone. You want to have an email sequence that delivers them very quickly and efficiently to the telephone. And potentially once they're on your list, whether they're customers or prospects, you want to continue to educate them and sort of hold a place of thought leadership in terms of your particular area of expertise. For us here at CLV Boost, that might mean sharing an article that we'd recently published on Direct Marketing News or Marketing Land, or an interview on a very well-known marketing interview show, something along those lines, to both educate and keep involved, and then also be able to continue to have a thought leadership standpoint in the mind of our buyers and prospects. There's a number of different ways that we can play the autoresponder game given our business model, but we'll look at some if-thens in terms of what we might improve and how. So, with respect to autoresponders, we can ask ourselves right off the bat, if we're talking to somebody, whether they run a restaurant, they run a software company, or they run a company that tints windows, we can ask, is there an automatic email campaign in place? If the answer is no, then we would create said campaign based on the desired action of the subscriber. We'd really want to figure out, okay, shucks, well, if we're getting a lot of people to the website and maybe a lot of people to sign up with their email, what do we ultimately want them to do right away? Because that thing is the thing that we'd have our email sequence do for us. The email sequence would either have them buy product one, it would either put them on the phone so that we could, sell them our various services and what have you. It would encourage them for a free trial of our software, whatever the case may be. So if the answer is no to an autoresponder, basically, unless they're getting no traffic, and unless they're in the kind of business where, they make all their money from 2 or 3 referrals that they've just been with forever, and it's some kind of service business like that, unless we're in a scenario of that kind, there really ought to be a decent amount of automatic email campaign action. Even if that's just driving people to the telephone to make the phone call when they sign up, creating autoresponders is awful important in nearly all business models. And again, the question I'd ask a prospect is, hey, you have people visit your website. What would be the ideal thing that they would do? And if they say buy, then I would have an autoresponder that brings them to buy. If they said get on the phone, then I'd build an autoresponder to get them on the phone. That's why autoresponders are in place, so that you don't have to do that stuff manually. So if they don't have an autoresponder, I would create and then test those autoresponders. If they do have an autoresponder, generally speaking, the problem most autoresponders have that we run into is that they're awful short. In fact, they're ridiculously short. Often just a few emails in length, or maybe half a dozen emails in length for something that could be easily 3 or 4 times as long without being in any way offensive, just being a little bit more persistent about actually trying to get a sale. So in general, most autoresponders are a little bit shy, a little bit short. Unless there's a reason to have a short autoresponder should be long. In general. Okay, there's always exceptions, but in general. Next, we can split test the copy or the subject lines. By copy, I mean the actual text in the emails. By subject lines, of course, I imply the subject lines, which is basically the headline of the email. If they're running an autoresponder sequence, but they're unable to split test the actual headlines and subject lines, they might be missing out on a ton of ROI if those subject lines were done a little bit better, or if the content inside the emails were written a little bit better. Which might drive more clicks, drive more sales, drive more calls, and that's ultimately what we're hired to do. And testing really allows us to do that so that we're not guessing. Then we also have, improving the copy and the calls to action. So sometimes we can do the split testing. Other times, even if the person doesn't have the wherewithal or the capacity to do the split testing, but we just know for a fact that the calls to action inside these emails are really not going to deliver results for the company, we can go in and fix that as well. So if they don't have them, we'll build them and we'll test them. If they do have them, a lot of the time we're going to be lengthening these autoresponders, we're going to be testing these autoresponders, and or we're going to be improving the heck out of the copy that's in there, because normally if they're not professional copywriters, and that's just fine, they have a business to run, there's a lot of opportunity to really refine autoresponders and actually make them make money, not just take up space. You notice here at the top right, I've written, efforts pay off more with higher traffic to main opt-in pages and with higher volume of current opt-ins. So if we have a ton of opt-ins coming in every single week, or we have higher price points for the people that do opt-in, we're looking at a higher ROI with our autoresponders. Similarly, if we have some really high traffic websites that maybe just don't have an opt-in opportunity on them yet, we could put an opt-in opportunity there. We could put a fill in your email to receive this white paper there on those high traffic pages, and we could make a lot of use of those pages, and that could be a very high ROI thing for this particular client. If they have very low prices and very low opt-ins, the odds are they're probably not making any money. In that case, it's really hard to work with them, just because they got to eat ramen noodles. They can't be paying folks like us. But similarly speaking, if they are getting a lot of traffic, then that's something that we can wield to generate more opt-ins, and then we'll be able to see immediate and high ROI on our autoresponders. The question here is not, do we have the ability to write good copy? We do. It's just a matter of, do we have enough eyeballs to make it worth it right away? And normally, the higher our price points, the higher our volume, the better off we are in terms of showing that ROI very, very quickly. The questions I would ask, and again, you can ask this of yourself if you run your own business, or you are the marketer, you should be asking yourselves these questions, because I'm putting you in my marketing brain here in terms of how we work with clients. The questions I might ask folks is, what happens to a subscriber directly after a conversion, whether that's an opt-in, a purchase, or an appointment? If they opt in, are we driving them to purchase? If they purchase, are we driving them to an upsell or a downsell? If they set an appointment, are we reminding them of that appointment date to make sure they show up, etc., etc., etc.? If the answer is, I have no idea what happens after they convert, then we have an opportunity to improve things. Next up, I would ask, what would you want all of your new subscribers to do for you automatically? If there was a magic spell to cast on these folks and have them all do one thing as soon as they enter their email address, what's that one thing you'd have them do? If it's purchase product X, then we'd build an autoresponder to do that. If it's get on the phone so we can sell them, then we'd build an autoresponder to do that. It's whatever the main goal is of the actual company. So these are the questions that I would ask somebody with respect to giving them an audit of their actual autoresponders. All right, so next up is broadcast messaging. Broadcast messaging involves emailing to our existing list with calls to action to engage with content or take a step forward towards a sale. This is often done too infrequently and in too generic a fashion, not tailored to the subscriber's needs and wants. Just to clarify for everyone listening in, broadcast messaging is usually what you think of as a blast email to your email list, to your subscribers. Unfortunately, the term blast usually means you're emailing everybody at once, and if you're emailing everybody at once, you're really not tailoring the subject line or the content to the specific readers. Not only will that help you maintain a better relationship, but it'll also help you make a whole bunch more money in terms of the return of investment of your email efforts. So the question I'll ask when it comes to database marketing, if I'm in front of a restaurant owner or someone who works marketing at a software company, is I'll say, do you have a database to send to? If you're a restaurant and you've never tracked a single person that's come in your door and you don't really keep their information in terms of being subscribers, they just kind of walk in and buy a steak, then the answer would be no, we don't have a database, in which case our goal is to find the appropriate email marketing or CRM, customer relationship management, software for them to be able to start to house all of their prospects and customers so we don't lose track of them. There are restaurants, believe it or not, that actually do email marketing rather well. There's also, places that sell men's clothing like ties and fancy suits that do this. A lot of businesses that you wouldn't suspect they'd have a big fat database actually do. And then shucks, they can use that thing to market to and to actually make some dollars. If these people do have a database, if they have a database with customers and prospects and maybe other information, what these people have bought, where they came from, what event we got them from, what their lead source was, etc. Now our aim is to segment this database and then determine a broadcast regimen to reach out to the various subsegments and to actually make money from them. We recently worked with a fella who runs 4 different physical therapy clinics in the United Kingdom, and his, he had a big database of X number of thousands of folks who were interested in the past in some kind of physical therapy services. They were interested in, getting their knee pain checked out, their back pain, etc. Most of them, however, didn't actually become customers. They expressed interest, but they never walked through the door. The problem that happened there is that at the end of their autoresponder sequence, this fellow is pretty smart with writing his autoresponders, they would sit around in his database and never be communicated with anymore. Or maybe, a couple times a year they'd get a big seasonal promotion. What we decided to do for a broadcast regimen, and this is just to give you an example for everybody tuned in, is we decided to pick one particular pain point or reason to approach Paul, is this fella's name, reason to approach Paul, that we would target once per week, and we would send them 2 emails that week. So one week we would rotate through the knee pain folks. We would send them some educational content on Monday, and then we'd send them content to tell them to come in and book an appointment for knee pain on Thursday, a no-cost appointment. Then the next week we'd do neck pain. We'd send them education on Monday. We would send them a call to action to book an appointment on Thursday. And we would continuously rotate through all these different pain points to the point where Paul was generating an additional 6 to 8 new clients per week, which even given his 4 locations ends up being a pretty good amount of money at the end of the year, continuing or assuming here that we can continue to mine that database, which we certainly will. So that's one example of how the database was segmented, and then we determined a broadcast regimen. Of course, that's going to be different business to business. If you're looking at your own database and you're noticing, geez, the only thing I ever do is blast my whole list, or shucks, I don't think I ever talk to these people at all. Really, you want to think about how you're segmenting and then how often you're reaching out to those segments to actually drive dollars through the door. When it comes to segmentation, when we're hired to do this, we're either doing this manually or we're doing it with surveys. We have a client right now who sells very expensive video marketing services to fashion brands, and their database was not segmented. But luckily, they had a reasonable number of people in the database. It was something like, I don't know, 500 to 800 or something in that range, and we actually had somebody on their team go in and manually tag all of those companies as, are they in the fashion niche? Are they in the do-it-yourself niche? Are they in the clothing and accessories niche? And so we categorized them in the ways that we knew were going to be most relevant for marketing. And then, of course, we used database marketing and generated a lot of appointments with those folks. Luckily, we're pretty good at that as well. In terms of what makes broadcast messaging more worth it than not, are these 3 factors. The general 3 factors that I'll look at are, what is the list size? What is the price point of the sale? And how responsive is this list? If you have a 20,000 person list with a 4% open rate consistently, and we have no segmentation, and so we can't get better responsiveness, we're in trouble. Now, if we're selling $20,000 items, it might still be worth it because, to be honest, one sale will validate a lot of email activity. However, if our price point is, a $17, fancy modern-looking tea kettle made of, whatever, well, shucks. I mean, we might be out of luck here in terms of really being able to hit database marketing hard. When somebody asks me, can we bring you on for this, I'm going to ask them questions like this. How large is your email list right now? If they have a 600-person email list, usually that's not a good sign unless, and there's a big unless here, folks, unless they have very high price points. So the video marketing people that I just told you about, they had, again, 500 to 800 people, but their price points are like $35,000 or something like that. And so for them, we did broadcast marketing, and we made money. And it was worth them investing in my efforts in order to bring me on, because even if we had a very small list, and even if our responsiveness wasn't off the charts, the price points were huge. But email list and size of email list is something I'll ask about right away. Also, how have you segmented your current email list or database? Of course, if they haven't, they can have us as a service go in and do that, or if you're listening in right now, you can go in and do that with your own list. And a big question for segmentation is, can we at least tell the customers from the prospects? Do we at least know the difference between somebody who's paid us a bunch of bucks and somebody who's never gotten out the credit card before? Because there is a big difference between those kind of people. We want to speak to them differently. And then last question, how often, or not necessarily the last question, but another question of priority, how often are you communicating with your existing email list? Do you talk to them all the time? Do we email the whole list? Do you email the various segments? Do you neglect them altogether? That's another important question that'll let me know, what kind of opportunity do I have in order to hop in? And remember, like I said before, the way that I know how much ROI this company might see from a relationship with me is based on how high these three things are. Do they have a higher list size? The bigger the better. Do they have a higher price point? The bigger the better. Do they have a higher responsiveness, better open rates, better engagement with the email? The bigger the better there. And so those three factors will help me decide how useful broadcast marketing would be. As I had mentioned before, if they have a small list, it doesn't mean I won't work with them. We have a video marketing folks that actually paid us a pretty good amount here to do some significant work with them, including database marketing. They had a very small database, but when we generated a couple sales for them, and if those sales are somewhere in the ballpark of 15 to 40 grand in customer lifetime value, it sort of validates those efforts, even if the email list is rather small. So here's some important principles to stick to and points to keep in mind. More segmentation is warranted with higher price points and with more traffic in general. So the more we want to break up our email list to segment them and send them different messaging, that's generally warranted when our price points are higher. Also, I should note here, and there's only so much room on a slide, that the more customized our solutions are, the more segmentation is warranted as well. Any email campaign or opt-in page that is not being split tested has a lot of room for improvement. So if you're talking to somebody, if you're thinking to yourself, about your current opt-in pages and your current email campaigns, you're asking, what are we split testing on that thing? And if the answer is zip zero, it means that we could be driving more conversions with our emails or with our opt-in pages by simply engaging in split testing that's well done and well thought out. And of course, our job is doing the copywriting. Although some of you tuning in, you have a basic understanding of copywriting, you could do the exact same thing yourself in many respects, or at least something like it. And then last, generally, autoresponders are too short, broadcasts are too infrequent, and both have poor calls to action. And these present big opportunities for massive ROI. So I talk to a lot of companies, folks. I talk to software people. I talk to venture-backed startups building browser extensions for Fortune 500 call centers. I talk to restaurateurs. I talk to people that run physical fitness academies. I talk to people selling physical products online, digital products online, and everything you can imagine. And the overarching opportunities that get slammed flat on my face over and over and over are that if there are autoresponders, shucks, they are super short, and they're not really geared towards the sale. They're not really geared towards either the phone appointment or the software engagement or the e-commerce sale. They're doing a poor job of having a strong call to action to generate return on investment. And then the broadcasts, these databases, often they're for the most part neglected. And if messages are sent out to that database, generally speaking, those messages are done pretty poorly, and they're sent to the entire list. So we're being too infrequent with our broadcast messaging. People have forgot about us by then, and I see that problem again over and over again. So in terms of autoresponders and broadcasts, where the biggest problems are, it is those. In terms of website, it is the fact that nobody's split testing anything, or a lot of the time companies aren't split testing anything. Even very high traffic pages that generate opt-ins, they're not being split tested for headline, for buttons, for call to action, anything like that. And then for software, anybody that's using MailChimp, Aweber, Constant Contact, if they want to see return on investment in their email marketing, I'm not saying those emails are bad. I'm just saying they're not the right emails for that job. Just like if you want Facebook paid pay-per-click advertising, I'm not the right guy to hire. Me, Dan Fagella, CLV Boost as an agency, we're the wrong people for that. We're really good at email and return on investment, but we don't do Facebook. Similarly, Aweber and Constant Contact and MailChimp, especially they're not really made to make much money, and oftentimes any kind of efforts to really use them to make money with emails, besides just kind of sending pretty looking messages, is going to sort of fall flat on its face. Not because it's a bad software, but simply because it's not a great fit for what we try to do, which is making money with email, generating return on investment in a very explicit way with tailored messaging and tailored marketing. So to wrap up here, that is it for this CLV Boost tutorial on doing your own email marketing optimization audit. Remember, in addition to email marketing optimization audits, which we're happy to do for folks as its own service, we're also involved in a number of different individual projects, both large and small, with all sorts of companies. Everything from email sequence assessment, conversion optimization, to purchaser appointment, subject line and email copy critiques, and much, much more. If you're interested in catching up or kind of presenting us with your project, you can reach us at clvboost.com/strategy, or you can email me at dan@clvboost. Thanks again for tuning in to this CLV Boost tutorial. This is Dan Fagella signing off.